The posting letter said Amazu, Enugu State, like it was a perfectly normal place to send a human being. Adaize Okonkwo read it 3 times on the NYSC orientation bus, each time hoping the letters would rearrange themselves into somewhere with fiber internet and at least one ShopRite. They did not. She had accepted the core posting the way Nigerians accept most national inconveniences, with loud complaints followed by quiet resignation. What she had not accepted, could not accept, was the electricity situation. Adaize was 3 months into a 6-month remote coding bootcamp. She had assignments due. She had a Zoom interview with a startup in Lagos the following Thursday. She needed power the way fish needed water, and Ujuani, she discovered on her first evening, received electricity exactly once a week, on Tuesdays between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. Only 2 hours? She asked her host, Mama Chidimma, a wide woman with a head tie that defied physics. Sometimes 1.5, Mama Chidimma replied cheerfully, setting a lantern on the table. NEPA is not smiling this season. By her 4th day, Adaize had mapped Ujuani's power infrastructure the way a general surveys a battlefield. There was one transformer. It sat at the center of the village like a fat, rusted god, wrapped in a chain so old the links had fused together, sealed with a padlock that looked older than independence. Nobody touched it. Nobody went near it. Children playing nearby would drift wide of it without being told, the way water finds its path around stone. She asked the NEPA office in the nearest town. A board official told her the transformer had been flagged. She asked what flagged meant. He looked at her the way adults look at children who have asked where babies come from. "It is a village matter," he said, "not NEPA's concern." She found her answer on a Wednesday evening from the village's oldest man, Pa Ekechukwu, who sat outside his compound every night listening to a radio powered by batteries he refused to explain the source of. She brought him garden eggs and groundnuts as an offering. He accepted them without acknowledgement. She sat, she waited. Eventually, he spoke. "In 1974, he said, cracking a groundnut with one thumb, when NEPA first brought the transformer to this village, the Igwe called a meeting. The elders said, 'This machine does not understand our land. It must be introduced.'" He paused. "There are 4 rivers that hold this valley. Nami, the water mother, Ero, the fire lord, Paro, the breath of wind, Anu, the earth keeper. The transformer was sealed in their names so that power would only flow with their blessing. The covenant has run ever since." Adaize stared at him. "So the electricity is controlled by river spirits?" Pa Ekechukwu looked at her as if she had said something obvious. "Yes," he said. "The men who built the transformer were from this village. They put the old names on the new machine. Nami, Ero, Paro, Anu." He ate another groundnut. The English people thought it was an acronym. It was not. She would have dismissed the whole conversation as folklore if that same night she hadn't dreamed of 4 voices, each one arriving from a different direction, each one carrying a request wrapped in a warning. She woke up with mud under her fingernails and a list in her head. The next morning, she borrowed a notebook from Mama Chidema's daughter and wrote everything before she could talk herself out of it. Adaize had coded through deadlines, fixed broken deployments at midnight, and debugged CSS for 6 hours without food. She could manage 4 spiritual errands. She approached the tasks like a project sprint. 1 spirit per day. She had a Thursday interview to make. The water mother's task came first, the way water always arrives before anything else. Adaize was told, by some instinct she couldn't name, to go to the river at dawn and simply listen. She went. She sat on a root that curved over the bank like a question mark. She listened. What she heard wasn't spirit speech. It was Mama Chidimma washing clothes 15 meters upstream, crying quietly while she worked. The kind of crying that has gone on so long it has become part of the rhythm of a task. Adaize didn't announce herself. She sat with the sound of it for a long while. Then she walked over and began helping with the washing. They worked in silence. After a time, Mama Chidimma said, without looking up, that her daughter, the one who had lent Adaize the notebook, had been accepted to study engineering in Nsukka 2 years ago. They hadn't sent her. There was no money and no one believed a girl from Ujuani needed to study engineering when she could just as well stay in Ujuani instead. She draws circuits in the back of her Bible, Mama Chidema said, since she was 9 years old. Adaize thought about her own boot camp, her own mother's voice on the phone 3 months ago. Coding? Is that not for the men at the computer shop? And how Adaize had stayed on the call for 2 hours, patient and stubborn, until her mother finally said, "Fine, fine, do your thing." The task of water, she understood, was witnessing, being present in someone else's grief without rushing to fix it. She had witnessed. That evening, she also sent Chidema's daughter 3 links, the engineering department scholarship page, a Girls in STEM fund she'd bookmarked, and a short message that said, "I'll help you write the application." That night, the lantern in her room burned steadier than it had any right to. Fire's task arrived on Tuesday with shouting. 2 men, brothers, had been locked in a land dispute for 11 years. The boundary between their compounds ran through what had once been their father's mango tree, which had split down the middle in a storm and now existed as 2 accusing halves pointing at each other. The elder brother claimed the right side, the younger claimed the left. Neither spoke to each other. Their children had grown up learning to hold a grudge by watching their fathers hold one. The elders had tried, the NYSC coordinator had tried briefly, then retreated. Adaize had no business trying. She had Python code to write, and yet she found herself standing between the 2 men on Tuesday afternoon, having been volunteered by Mama Chidema, who told the brothers that the copper understands systems. Adaize did not understand systems of this kind, but she knew that every problem she had ever solved had 2 things in common. Somebody had misunderstood the requirements, and someone else was too proud to ask for clarification. She spoke to each brother separately. She didn't ask what they were claiming, she asked what they wanted. The elder brother wanted to be acknowledged as the firstborn, in public, just once, so the village would stop whispering that their father loved the younger son more. The younger brother wanted his children to walk to school without taking the long road around. Neither of these things required ownership of a dead mango tree. She told them this, directly, in the way that only outsiders can say the obvious without landing as an insult. There was a long silence. Then the elder brother called his brother by a childhood name Adaize didn't recognize, and the younger one laughed, a surprised, reluctant sound, and they stood there for a moment, awkward and almost new again. She didn't heal 11 years in one afternoon, but she opened a door that had been sealed by pride. The fire task, she thought, was not destruction, it was the controlled burn, clearing old growth so something better could breathe. The wind task was the hardest because wind deals with secrets, and the secret of Ujuani was the secret the village had agreed, without a single meeting, to never say aloud. There was a healer, Lulunguzi, who had been treating illness in the village for 40 years. She knew which bark to boil, which leaves to press, which words to say when a fever came in the night. People came from 3 neighboring villages to see her. She had kept children alive through malaria seasons when the nearest clinic was 2 hours by road. She had never been officially acknowledged. No signboard, no mention at village meetings, not because people didn't respect her. They did, deeply, but because formally recognizing her meant the village would have to admit that a woman had been holding their community's health for 40 decades. And somehow, year after year, that acknowledgement had been quietly postponed. Adaize found out about Lulungozi because she got a stomach infection from the well water on day 8. She was brought, barely upright, to a small compound at the edge of the village, and a woman who looked like everybody's favorite grandmother diagnosed her in 10 minutes, made her drink a tea that tasted like the bottom of a forest, and had her completely functional within 2 days. "How long have you been doing this?" Adaize asked on her second visit. Lulungozi counted on her fingers. Then she laughed and said, "Since your father was in secondary school." The wind task was the task of carrying things into the open air. Adaize wrote a long post on the Coppers WhatsApp group, then a longer one on her public page about the woman at the edge of Ujuani, her methods, her history, her quiet genius.
She tagged the state health reporter she'd met at orientation. By the end of the week, someone drove down from Enugu to a voice recorder. By the end of the month, the signboard was up. Wind moves things, Adaize thought. Sometimes all it takes is someone willing to carry the words from one place to another. The earth task was simple in the way that the most important things are always simple. It just asked her to stay. Not forever, not past her service year, just for one more day, beyond the Thursday she had been counting toward. She had rescheduled her interview, charged her laptop during the Tuesday NEPA window, and prepared everything. She was ready. She had done her 4 tasks. She was by any reasonable measure finished. Then the generator for the primary school died on Wednesday night. The same generator that powered the one computer lab, the same lab where 12 secondary
had been preparing for their WAEC practical exam on Friday. Adaze had a generator she'd borrowed from the NYSC coordinator for her own exam prep. She thought about it for approximately 4 minutes. Then, she loaded the generator into a wheelbarrow and pushed it to the school. She spent Thursday and Friday in the computer lab with 12 teenagers who typed with 2 fingers and called her auntie, and asked between practice runs whether it was true that programmers slept during the day. She taught them keyboard shortcuts. She fixed the school's ancient installation of Windows XP. She ate the yam porridge the teachers brought, and she did not complain about the heat. The earth task was the task of being in the place fully, without one foot already pointed toward the exit. To press your wheat into the ground and say, I am here now, and here is worth being in. It happened without ceremony. No thunder, no drums, just a hum, low and warm and growing, and then every bulb in Ujuani blazed to life at once, flooding the village in a light so sudden and complete that people stepped outside just to look at each other's faces. Adaze sat on Mama Chidima's veranda with her laptop open, her IDE lit up, a full battery, and a Wi-Fi connection strong enough to make her want to cry. She had 3 unread messages from the startup in Lagos. She had a bootcamp deadline in 2 hours. She had code to write and a career to build and 1,000 things to do. She set the laptop aside for 5 minutes. She looked at the lit-up village, at the brothers' compounds, both glowing, at Lulongozi's signboard catching the light for the first time, at the school down the road where 12 kids had just gotten a real shot at their futures, and at Mama Chidima's daughter, standing in the doorway with a phone in her hand and a look on her face that could only mean one thing. She had found the scholarship link. The transformer stood at the center of it all, humming steadily. Its old chain was gone. Nobody had removed it. It had simply, at some point in the last hour, fallen away. Pai Kichuku's radio drifted over the evening air, a high life song, old and unhurried and completely unbothered by time. Adaze opened her laptop. She cracked her knuckles. She began to code.